So, I made a video about first cars in the UK, and that video was kind of an overview of everything as a whole. In this video, we're going to specifically talk about the cars. Did kind of say I wanted to make this into a bit of a mini-series, so that's what we're going to go ahead and talk about today, is actually what car could I be possibly getting. I'm going to bring up a few options, some of the things to look out for, and what I've learned so far whilst, you know, just learning the tips of the trade and stuff. Now, I'm very ill-experienced. I just want to point that out straight away. Anything I've learned is either A, from like a guardian, a friend, or a family member, and that's as far as my knowledge goes. But this is kind of more along the lines of what you would expect to get if you're around 17 to like 20 years old. I'm going to bring up a few options that for me were cheap to insure and are relatively cheap to buy, and then hopefully maybe this might apply to you if you're a bit of a car person, because to be honest, when I googled, you know, like what nice like nippy cars can I get for being 18 years old, no results came up. People were saying, why don't you get a Corsa or a Peugeot 107 or whatever it's called, and I'm like, I don't want either of those. It doesn't really interest me. So first things first, let's talk about the criteria and probably what you're gonna search on most car websites. Now for me, I found that anything from a 1 litre to a 1.6 litre engine is usually insurable. It obviously depends on what type of 1.6 litre you get. You can't really go over 150 brake, otherwise insurance is going to kill you. So relatively speaking, just kind of stay below 150. Try it anyway if there's a car that you like which is above, but usually if you want to get a quote which isn't with a black box, you're gonna need to go below. Insurance is very specific and relative to you, so it could change from person to person, but this is what I've just personally found in my personal instance, is that anything with above about 150 brake is gonna be a rip-off. Front wheel drive, it pretty much needs to be front wheel drive. A front wheel drive hatchback, preferably, is from what I've noticed. I've tried to insure like 1 Series and stuff, like cheap 1 Series, and it just doesn't work because it's rear wheel drive. I'm assuming that's why, at least. So front wheel drive hatchback, and then obviously price depends on the insurance, how much you want to spend on insurance, your overall budget. And for me, I've said it anywhere from £1,000 to £5,000, and these were some of the best options. So you got number 1, you've got the classic Ford Fiesta Zetec S. Bit of a yobbo car, to be honest, depending on which one you go with. I'm looking at like the most recent shape, or the one prior to that. I don't really care, to be honest. I think the Zetec S is a pretty nice looking car for a first car, and it offers a lot more than some of the other cheaper alternatives. You know, it's not too bad. It's just an average car. I'm not going to sit here and say a Zetec S is like God, because it's really not. But for a first car, very bog standard. And to be honest, on the certain cars I've looked at, I would say it's not boring, because it's kind of got like the ST-esque like body kit and stuff. It's not boring, and it's a 1.6 litre engine, so it's not boring, but it's not like the most interesting car on this list. Depending on which model you go for, you can obviously get them relatively cheap. And for me, I've found insurance isn't too bad. At one point it really was. At one point it was awful to insure. So again, it's kind of trial and error. The car might not be as cheap as it was for you as it was for me, but the Zetec S, definitely a good choice. Second car, Mazda 3. This was a car that I was looking at quite a while ago. To be honest, I probably personally won't pick it, but I imagine a lot of you guys who live in the UK probably didn't think of a Mazda 3. Now, it's a 1.4. The one I was looking at was a 1.4. It's very easy to insure, but the only issue is pretty much all of them are very rusty. And that was the main issue I found, at least. Every one you look at, like on Auto Trader, wasn't really in good condition, and it's very hard to find a good condition one. But if you can, they would probably be great runarounds. But you know, I've heard that it's quite reliable, and you know, it gets the job done, and it's got very cheap insurance compared to everything else because of the smaller engine and, you know, not as much horsepower and stuff. Obviously, it's not going to be as fun as like the Zetec S and some other cars on this list, but you know, it's a cheap alternative. It's there. It's not too bad. The next option on the list, and it's the first Renault on the list, is just a normal Renault Clio. So you've got 2 models I'm thinking of in my head. I can't tell you what generation they are. I think it's generation 3 and 4, although it could be wrong. Really nice cars. If you can get insured on a Clio RS, then that's madness. For me, I couldn't. I think the closest I could get was the Dynamic S, which was the one with the turbo. So that's pretty cool, and it's got a lot of horsepower compared to something, you know, a bit lower end. But Clios, easy to insure, you know, because they're so widely spread in the UK. repair costs shouldn't be too bad, and overall I wouldn't mind a Clio. And because they are so widely available and because they were sold in such like big amounts initially when it came out, you can get a really nice condition one for relatively cheap. So a Clio for sure is pretty goddamn good. And second Renault on the list is a Renault Twingo RS. So this is the one that caught my eye. I did kind of say I wanted to be transparent with these videos and whatnot, so I'm not gonna lie, I did kind of like the look of the Twingo RS. There's two models. You've got the normal RS and the Cup model. The Cup model comes with like stiffer suspension. It's a bit more of a racy setup, as well the normal one just hasn't got the stiffer suspension and the different just general suspension setup. Very rare. I found out these cars are very, very rare, and if you're not willing to go quite far out in terms of distance, well, yeah, it's going to be hard to find one depending on where you live. But without a doubt, A, the fastest car on this list, B, looks like possibly the most fun car on the list, and C, surprisingly cheap to insure. I think to insure it was $1,800 without a black box. That's pretty goddamn mad if you ask me. And overall, like, mini hot hatch. It's like a mini hot hatch. I would like one. Not gonna sit here and lie. Whether I'll get one or not all depends if we can find a nice condition one in my area before we find a nice Zetec S or a Clio. But I would like one. I've looked at a few, and we've gone to look at a few. Again, whether we get one or not all depends on if we can find a nice one in the area. But I do kind of have my eye on it at the moment because, you know, it's an RS. If you don't know what RS stands for, it stands for Renault Sport. So it's got like the heritage in the name. From what I've heard, at least from people who have owned them, they've enjoyed it like a lot. So a Twingo RS would be pretty cool. And then obviously you could get a normal Twingo. There's a 1.2 GT model, which isn't too far below, and you could probably get it for a bit cheaper, but obviously doesn't have the different suspension setup. It's still slower and it's turboed. It's not NA like the 1.6 litre Twingo RS is. So it's a difference of want to go with the GT model, might be a bit cheaper to insure and stuff, but the RS is just going to be a hell of a lot more fun. Another piece of advice I have for you is budget the car for how long you're going to have it. I'm probably going to keep my car till the end of university. Initially, I kind of want, if I got a shit box for like a year, I would get rid of it after a year. I probably would have got an MR2 or an MX-5. But realistically, now in this position I'm in, probably not going to happen. It just doesn't make sense in the position I'm in to do that, especially being at university and just like messing around with buying different types of cars. Obviously I'd love to, but financial situations kind of stop that. You know, I'd love to have a Twingo RS alongside a Track SW20. That's probably not going to happen just because of money. I hope it does. Like, I hope to, like, the gods up in the YouTube gods, I hope the ads rain down on my videos, but likelihood is that's probably not going to happen. So if you plan to get rid of it after a year, don't spend as much. Probably not a good idea. Don't customize your car if you're gonna, you know, only have it for a year. Obviously, it's up to you. It's your car. Do what you want. But for me, I really don't see any point in doing that. You're just dumping money into something which you're gonna get rid of in a bit. You do you, but that's just my advice. You know, if you're gonna spend money on like a Corsa and make it fast, you might as well have spent a bit extra and just got the Twingo RS instead. It's kind of just how I see it. And that pretty much rounds it up for like everything in this video. I do kind of want to quickly touch on insurance. Obviously, it's going to depend from person to person. I kind of mentioned this earlier. So some of you guys may not be able to insure the Twingo RS, but you might be able to insure something higher like a Clio RS. It's very weird. It's very weird. It depends on your situation. But this is just how it is for me in my situation, and those are a few cars which I thought were pretty goddamn cool. Honourable mentions, you know, you've got your standard stuff, your Corsa. As much as I rip into it, it's a very good first car, and to be honest, if you like Vauxhalls and Corsas, go for it. They're cheap to run. Insurance isn't too bad, and you can probably pick one up for a relatively cheap car because they are the budget car of the UK. Let's be like real, it is the budget car of the UK, so you can find one for pretty cheap. I just made a vow not to sink to that level. Volkswagen Polo is also a very good option. Again, that's kind of something I wouldn't mind getting. And that's kind of one of the obvious options. That's one of those things that everyone will say in these videos, like, what is your first car you should get? You should get a Fiesta and a Polo. But it is a good option, you know, it's there if you want it, but it's not exactly for the petrol heads out there, to be honest. Suzuki Swift Sport is another one which is cheap to insure, a bit nippy, kind of like a hot hatch. Again, It's there if you can get it insured, but I know I personally couldn't get it insured. Your focuses, you know, you got a lot of general options. I'm sure I missed out many, and I'm sure people are going to correct me in the comments, but those are just a few, you know, recommendations on probably what you could get. So if you guys did enjoy this video, if you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. I may do one more of these depending on how the reception is on this video. So if you do want to see another one, please go ahead and hit a like and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. What do you think of the list as a whole? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I'm not going to say what I'm going to get. I'm going to leave it open-ended. Because, you know, I kind of want to surprise you guys when I eventually get it. But that's been it from me today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.